Welcome to A Walk in the Garden. I'm Liz Davey, and this show is one of a series that's filmed in Norfolk by Norfolk Community Cable Television, NCTV. Today is early December, and I'm getting ready for the holidays. The garden has pretty well been put to bed. You'll see the herb garden that we've visited all last summer is now covered with oak leaves, and I'm going to leave them there as a little added mulch. Oak leaves are very light and they don't compact like maple leaves do. So if you leave them on the area for the winter, they can provide more of a mulch. The maple leaves and other leaves sometimes mat down and actually smother the plants, but this will just provide a nice little layer of insulation, and we can rake them off in the spring when we're doing cleanup. Fortunately, because the oaks, as you can see by the tree over here, are the last to come down. Oaks lack a layer right between the leaf and the stem that causes other leaves to fall. And so they either blow off or fall in the spring when the new leaves pop them off. So they're very late to come down, and you'll be out all winter taking out oak leaves, and all spring too. And I just tend to leave those. We get them off the lawn, but leave them on the flower beds. Now I'm going to move over by the perennial garden. I've left a few perennials for the birds. These have seeds, still have a few seeds on them. Some of the grasses do as well. They also give a little winter interest and height out here. Where I had my flower arrangement, I just added some of the greens that I've picked and a little holly, and there's a few holly berries in here that the birds have not reached yet. And some of the sedum blossoms, and some of the red twig dogwood that I picked. These are all items from the garden except for the ribbon, and I even used the same container and just poked the stems into the dirt. You'll see as we go around that I've done this with a number of the containers as well. And these will stay until spring. In fact, when the ground freezes, which it hasn't yet completely, because we can still rearrange things a little bit, they will freeze right in place. I'll get rid of those in the spring and then replant the container and perhaps even move it to a new location. I left the asters as well. Things like lavenders I covered with oak leaves in bushel baskets, and I've mounded compost around the base of each rose. If we continue having a lot of wind, I'll try to put some branches of pine branches after the holidays on top of the rest of the canes of the rose. The other thing we could do with climbing roses is make sure that the canes are tied securely to the trellises so that they won't whip around in the wind too much. The sedum I've left, it's decorative. I've picked quite a few of them, and I discovered that you could spray paint it to make it that red color that it was a little earlier in the fall. I used a little burgundy paint on some of it, and I also used some gold paint on some, just to add to my arrangements. I've left standing the butterfly bush, and that gets pruned in the spring along with the lavenders and some of the other hardier things that I've left. They'll all get pruned down in the spring. The sedum will get pruned in the spring. Deer love sedum, it turns out, in the spring, and hopefully leaving the blooms on it will discourage them from eating the new growth as it comes up, if it comes up before I have a chance to prune it back and spray it with deer spray. Now let's go over to the vegetable garden and see what's happening over there. The answer to what's going on in the vegetable garden is not much. I have covered some of the things with straw that I want to keep, parsley underneath that set of straw, and the garlic that we planted this fall is underneath a row over there. I've also marked it with flags, some leftover dog guard flags from my dog containment system, and that was so that when it was rototilled, they didn't get rototilled along with it. The garden has been rototilled, and it's ready and waiting for spring. The only other thing that's going on out here is a growing pile of brush, and that will be burned in the spring. Burning starts, I think, the end of January in Norfolk and continues on through the month of April and ends May 1st. So sometime between the end of January and May 1st, we will be bringing the brush into the garden and burning it to get rid of it. It could also be taken over to the transfer station, and they will chip it up and use it for wood chips. I don't have a truck, so our choice has been to burn it. My compost pile is down this way. I've covered up my potting bench for the winter, but the compost pile will continue to add kitchen scraps all winter. We filled it with all of the plants that I pulled out of the garden and turned it, and now I'll just keep adding kitchen scraps all winter long, as long as I can get to it. I tend to shovel a little path down so that we can continue to dump the vegetable matter from the kitchen. No meat goes in the compost pile. That attracts rodents, which we really don't need, so we just keep it to vegetables and fruit peelings. Now let's go over to see some decorations. I filled my window boxes with greens that I've picked from the garden. Some of them actually blew down from the pine trees, and I used them in the window boxes, and some holly that I picked from the holly bush. I pruned the holly bushes, trying to get some with berries. However, the birds tend to like them as much as I do, and they disappear. You'll note that this box had a pansy in it in the fall, and it's still blooming here, which is really something. It's been kind of warm off and on. We've had a few cold days so far, but the pansy's still blooming, so I left it here. It's kind of covered with the greens a little bit, and we'll see. It might just stay through the winter. In this box, one of the snapdragons has continued to bloom off and on all fall. I left it here. It may come back in the spring or it may not. But I filled the box with greens. Any of the containers that I leave out, and that would be the wooden barrel and also some of the plastic or fiberglass containers, anything that was ceramic or terracotta had to be moved inside for the winter. They tend to freeze and then they will crack and break. But the plastic or the wood or the fiberglass will be all right if you just leave soil in them and add greens. I added a piece of a branch that came down, an old branch. I put a birdhouse and a bird on it just for a little extra color. And these are some of the sedums that I sprayed. And I used a burgundy paint, which I thought looked a little more natural than a bright blue or something very garish. But they were that color later, or earlier in the season. They start out kind of pink in the late summer, and then they turn the deep red, and then eventually they turn brown. But I renewed their color with a little bit of spray paint. It can do wonders. Again, you can continue to add greens to these as long as the soil isn't frozen, but these will freeze hard, and then they will be there until spring. Then you can remove them. We can come out and back. I have several bird baths in the yard, and instead of taking them in, I just tip them up so that the water won't stay in them. Otherwise, again, they do crack because they are cement or a cement type material. But I just turn them up and the water will flow out of them and it won't crack over the winter, and we'll put them back up come spring. Some people do keep a heater type thing plugged in the bird bath, And I usually have a hole in the pond when I have fish in it, but we also have a brook that runs all season, so I don't worry about the birds getting water. There seems to be plenty of water in the brook that runs along the property edge. I'm feeding the birds and they're eating regularly. And now it's the time to add some suet cakes for the woodpeckers and chickadees. And I just put those in. I don't have a very fancy holder, but if we start to have problems with raccoons coming at night, I do bring this bird feeder in at night. I have a couple hanging ones as well, and those seem to be all right. But the one here tends to get knocked over by raccoons, so I can just bring it in quickly at night. If it were permanently installed, I wouldn't be able to do that. Now let's go inside and make some decorations and get ready for Christmas. The first thing I'm going to do today is decorate a purchased wreath. And I've already started it by adding some incense cedar branches. I have a variety of branches here to add, and a little holly. I clipped the holly from my garden, but I did buy a bunch of the incense cedar since I don't have a plant of that nature. I don't believe it's native to this area. Before I even started though, I put a hanger on the wreath, and I put a ribbon on the hanger so that I know where the top is. When you start decorating, you want to make sure you have a place where the top is, and you know where it is as you start putting things on the wreath. And I'm going to just put some purchased items on this one, and I'll place them. And I have 5 of these, so I want to place them. And using this one, I can put one in the middle. To attach the incense cedar, I just put it under. Each of these wreaths is made by bundling bunches of greens with wire. So if you can find a wire, you can just slip the new green underneath. There's no need to wire it in. The same with the holly. With these, you do need to fasten them on. And I'm going to put one at the very end and then just keep moving them around like this. These have a wire stem. They're purchased items, craft store items. We have a tag here that I will remove at some point with the scissors. Sometimes they have a hanging loop on them, sometimes they don't. But but you can really jazz up an inexpensive wreath. And to fasten these, I won't fasten all of them, but you just basically push it through the greenery. And then connect it around with the wire that's fastened with it. And if you need to add more wire, you can use the green paddle wire to add it. And that is this stuff, which you can just fasten around it to hold it securely. I'm not going to fasten everything on this right now, but I will place it, and then I'll know where to fasten it. It's nice to work in things like 3s and 5s when you're doing something like this. It gives you kind of an even way to do it. This is true of flower arranging in general. If you work with uneven numbers, it tends to give a more pleasing result. Unless you're going for something very symmetric. But usually, this will work pretty well. And this adds a little gold and a little copper, and I thought it was very pretty with the cones and the copper. A little bit different than your normal red and green. And then I have some gold leaves that I can also add to the other side, and these too have a wire, and that will fasten right through the base of the wreath. And you can turn the wreath over then and fasten these down a little better. This adds a little sparkle, and if it's outside and by a light, you'll get some sparkle at night. And again, I have 5 of these. put in. And then the next thing that we have to add is a nice bow. And this is a bow I made using 2 different ribbons. And I made it as if I were making a bow using 1 ribbon, which I'll do in a minute. But I used the ribbon doubled. And then when it was finished, I just pulled the pieces apart. And tied it with a wire, piece of the wire. And that, again, will just go around at the top of the wreath. So the streamers hang down. And a wreath makes a nice gift as well as a nice decoration for your own house, either inside or out. And that's our wreath for the day. And I'll just kind of set that over here somewhere, right there, I guess, and work on something else. We have a few errant pine needles here, which I can add to the trash. The next thing I want to do is a hanging basket for outside. And this is a regular old hanging basket that had flowers in it with soil. But this time I've added a piece of the green oasis that you can get at the craft store, and I've soaked that in a bucket of water until it's saturated. And I'll add some greens to that. And use my clippers to add a variety of greens. And these are pieces I've cut from outside. And I'll just poke them in around and add a variety. Once you've cut the stem and put it in, if you recut it, you need to recut it again. Once it's been into the foam, it will be blocked from absorbing any fluid. This is hemlock, the other was white pine, and again, we're just going to fill it with the greens. And I have some other types in here that I took off some of the bushes I have. Let's see what we've got. A little more hemlock. This will last outside until spring. And it will freeze, but it will stay. And if you wish, you can remove the decorations we're going to put in and leave it a little more natural and just a bouquet of greens as we get into the rest of the winter season. A little more white pine, I think. Now the fun begins, because now we can add some bright accessories. And I'm going to add cones. And I fastened these 2 picks, and to do that, these picks have a wire on them, and you basically just wrap the wire around the base of the cone. And I have short ones and long ones. Some of the sticks are short and some are long. And then I can just poke those into the foam. I have various types of cones. The idea is to fill the basket so you can't see the foam. It's a different cone. I think I'll not use that one. And then I have red Christmas ornaments. And again, I've just wired the Christmas ornament to one of the sticks. We're going to make this kind of a sparkly arrangement. And I have some multiple small ones that are also on picks. This is going to be a kind of red arrangement. And some of the balls have sparkles. And I did leave the liner, put a liner in it that goes with the, I need another stick here. The liners are made of a coir substance, and again, we'll just wrap it around the stick, and that one can go in the middle. A little taller. But I'm really filling this up with some sparkle and shine here. And rather than putting a ribbon on the hanging basket, I'm going to use little lights. And these are battery operated. And they are rated for indoor-outdoor use. I am going to hang this under an overhang so it won't get too much outdoor. And I'm just going to curl the lights around within the greens. Kind of poke them down. And hide the little part that turns them on. And maybe even poke a few more greens in the basket later to hide them. And then we can arrange them a little more by turning on the lights. These run on a little button battery, so they will last quite a long time. But you don't want to turn it on unless it's night. And then we have the hanger for the basket, which I put down. And this can be hung outdoors. And I will hang it by my garage. And I've fastened the chains with an old shower curtain hook to fasten it up. So that is our next arrangement, which is just using holiday ornaments and some lights. Yeah, there's one more here I forgot to stick in. The next thing I'm going to do is an arrangement for my table, and I'd like to have it in gold and white along with the greens. And I'm starting out with a plastic container. It looks better than it really is. It is plastic. And I've put in it a piece of the soaked foam. And then I'm going to add greens to this to give it a nice shape. And again, I'll be cutting these as I go. I've cut a bunch. And we'll just push them into the foam. And I have a variety of things, including Le Cothway, which is an evergreen that has broad leaves. And again, we want a nice variety. And we'll also put a little of the holly in. You can either start in the middle or around the edges, or do a little of each. A little bit of the incense cedar. It has such a nice fragrance to it it's nice to add to an arrangement for that reason. Even if you have small pieces of it, you'll get the nice aroma of the holiday season. And it kind of drapes over as well. Here's another piece of the lookout way. And you can keep turning it around as you go. And again, I want to make sure that I've covered pretty much all of it. I have a little boxwood to add, so it'll be very definitely a mixed greens arrangement. It's a good time to trim the broadleafed evergreens as well as your evergreens, and you can use the cuttings. This arrangement, if kept inside, will need to be watered occasionally. The container will hold water, so I don't need to worry about that. And you'll just water it about once a week to keep that foam moist. I could add holly berries, but again, I think I want to keep this one in the all white and gold. So I won't be adding the holly berries at this point. Now we need to add a little more over here. Let's see what we have. I just went out and trimmed shrubs, and that's how I got the greens to go in. Cut a little look both way. I talked about adding evergreen to some of the plants to cover them, and we can use some of these trimmings that are not used to winterize some of the plants. The ones that are in the full sun especially tend to thaw when it gets warm, and we would like them, once they're frozen, to stay frozen so that they can last through the winter. If they come up too fast, then they'll get killed off when it does turn colder. So adding a few pine boughs to your plants that are in a vulnerable location in the sun is a good idea once the ground is frozen, which it is not quite yet. Let's see, we got a little of the holly without berries. We can add a few sprigs of that. Here and there. And I'm making it really full. And then I have accessories to add to this. Now that we've got it pretty well filled with greens, I can add all sorts of things. And I've made a good collection. I did purchase this little birdhouse because I thought it was really cute. And that can be nestled in at one point. And then I have some gold balls to put in. Again, I'd like to keep kind of a gold and white. And I have some gold cones as well that can be added. Here's one with some sparkle. few more cones. Did spray some of these things white, and we can put a few of those in. They were left from another arrangement and they were not white, but a little spray paint turned them white. And I also have a white stick. A few of the things I'd gotten from the garden and sprayed I can add also. And I've sprayed these items. These are actually fern fronds that I sprayed gold. And I'm going to cut them a little shorter. I have plenty of material here to make a number of arrangements. And I have a white tablecloth on the table, so I thought this would look really nice. It's somewhat natural, but somewhat formal too. And we'll put a few of those in. And I also have some of the alliums that we got from the garden. I need to look at the front a little bit. And we'll put another one or two of those in. It's going to need to be shorter as well. And maybe one more of those. I also sprayed some of the sedum, and we could put some of that in over here. And another one of the alliums. They do very well with spray paint, as you can see. And there, that can be the front of that arrangement. And again, I can rearrange it a little bit, especially the dried things. The greens, if I want to rearrange them, I do have to take out some of the greens and cut them again in order to put them back in. But I will turn it around and take a look, and I'm pleased with it. And I want to see my little birdhouse there that's in the middle. And if I desire it, I can add a red cardinal at some point, which would give it just a nice counterpoint, maybe up on the branch. And this will go on as a dining room table arrangement. And the hanging basket. We could also add some of the baby's breath. I forgot about that. And that can be added in. You could also add in a few chrysanthemums. If you are chrysanthemums would work, white ones. Or white carnations would also work if you want to add some fresh material. And this can be replaced. Anything you put in that's fresh will last a little while, but will need to be replaced later on. But this gives it a little more of the white. And so that would be a nice table arrangement. And then one more thing for winter would be setting some paper white bulbs. And paper whites are narcissus. They are not hardy. They are for inside use. And these have already started to sprout. But I've just put some of the white rocks into a container. And I'll add 3 bulbs to this container. Hopefully neatly, so they stand up. And the roots will form down into the rocks, and the stalks will grow up to the top. And I'll add some more of the stones around them to hold them in place. Kind of rearrange those. And we can watch those grow in the winter. I'll put these in a sunny window, near a sunny window, and we'll be able to watch the plants grow. The last thing I'm going to do is show you how to make a bow. It's really not difficult. It takes a little practice, but once you get the hang of it, it works pretty well. And the idea is to have some ribbon. Having wired ribbon really helps, that has a wire in the edge, but it's not necessary. And you want to leave some for a streamer, and then gather together one loop. and twist the ribbon. Twisting the ribbon gives the bow some fullness. And each time you go to the center, trying to keep them even in size, you twist the ribbon. This is especially important if you have ribbon that has one side, as we did on our wreath. That ribbon has pattern only on one side. So this keeps the right side up. And you can do as many loops, twisting it each time, as you wish. Generally, a minimum is 3. And if you use a double ribbon, 3 is plenty because that will give you double the amount of edges. And then once you have everything tied together, you use a piece of wire and fasten it around the middle. Ribbon is a lot cheaper than buying bows. And once you learn to make them, it's a very easy thing to make your own. You can also take them apart and reuse the ribbon the next year. If you take it apart and roll it, as I had rolled, this one was in a roll. And then the edges on this one I cut in a little V, or you can cut them crosswise. But there we have a bow that we can use someplace. I'm not going to use it on any of these arrangements at this time, although it would look pretty fastened to this basket. Maybe we'll put it up there just for now. And then let's get our wreath out, and we'll have a variety of holiday decorations that you can make, winter decorations. I tend to leave them up much of the winter. A wreath, a center arrangement, and some paper whites which will bloom in after Christmas. After you take all the decorations down, it's nice to have something blooming and something new, and we have that. And now that we've gotten our house all decorated for the holidays, it's time to go in the kitchen and prepare some gifts that we can give to family and friends. Today I'm going to make some peanut brittle, and it makes a good gift. And I'm going to use the microwave, which is a quick way to do it. And I start with 1 cup of sugar and a 1/2 cup of corn syrup, white corn syrup. And I want to stick this in the microwave. I'll stir it up over here and add it to the microwave on high for 3 to 5 minutes. It's going to get light brown. And we'll just put it in on high for, we'll start with 3. All right, it's light brown. And now I'm going to add the peanuts. 1 cup of peanuts, and these are dry roasted, unsalted, but you can use salted or roasted. And I'm going to add those now, and then I'll microwave it again for 1 to 2 minutes. Peanuts will be a little bit browned. This is very hot, so you need to be really careful getting it out of the microwave. And I'll bring it over here and add a few more ingredients. A teaspoon of butter, which will melt right away. A teaspoon of vanilla. We'll stir those in. Definitely need a pot holder on this. And then a teaspoon of baking soda, and this is what makes peanut brittle foam up. And you'll see it turn a lighter color and become foamy. And at this point, we can turn it out of the pan onto a greased baking sheet and spread it out as much as we can. This will be very hard and crisp when it cools. The pan will get clean with a little soaking in hot water. I'm going to use a couple of forks and attempt to pull it out a little bit on the greased pan. You can sometimes spread it out a little further or actually pick it up and stretch it to make it thinner, or just let it cool the way it is, and we'll then break it into pieces and it will be ready to package. One more item that I can make as a gift item would be a cheese ball. And I do that in the food processor, and I'll use some packaged processed sharp cheese. Kraft makes a good one, Old English, that's available only at holiday time. A whole package of cream cheese, a teaspoon of horseradish, and a quarter of a teaspoon of garlic powder, and the same of onion powder. This makes a spicy cheese ball. Then I'll just spin that to combine it. And then it's good if you chill it before you roll it, but we're going to attempt to do it anyway. I have chopped parsley, and incidentally that is from my garden. We're still getting some parsley, or I did. I packed it away, and then this will make a couple different cheese balls. And basically we would just want to roll it in the parsley until it forms a nice ball. And it helps if you chill this mixture first, as you might guess, but I think we can do it by just sprinkling it on. Cheese balls are kind of back in. And you could also use chopped nuts if you wished. That can be put on a plate to serve it. I would chill it before I wrapped it. But if you wanted to serve it, put some crackers on it and then give it away as a gift by putting it in a plastic bag. That would work really well. Also, you can wrap this and put it in the freezer, so you can make it ahead and then have it available. It's nice that the recipe makes two, because you can have one to give away and one to keep for yourself, which is always nice to have if you have drop-in guests. I make a lot of Christmas cookies. They're also a gift that I make frequently. And this is some that I've made, and they're just plain chocolate shortbread cookies. and I'm going to decorate those. I've decorated some already, but the decorating is pretty simple. I've put white and red frosting into the decorating bags, and we may have to use a toothpick to open it up since I prepared this earlier. They're really not too hard to decorate. You could use purchased frosting. Some of it even comes in a container that you can squeeze it out. Or make your own like I did and put it into a pastry bag with a tip, a fine tip for snowflakes. This one I already put a little red on, and I can just use some of the white. If you use two colors on the same cookie, it's usually wise to let the first color set before you put more on. And then we'll put some white strips on this one. And then we have the red. And I'll just fill in the between the white. They're really fun to do. You can do a variety of patterns and designs. Just with two colors of frosting and two shapes of cookies. So those are some of the Christmas cookies I would do. And then we have some ways to package things up if you wish to give them as gifts. This is some leftover chocolate that I had, and I melted it like this, and then added some cut up marshmallows and cut up peanuts for Rocky Road fudge. And then put it into a small pan and cut, when it's set, I cut it in squares. Little candy wrappers are widely available. If you put it on a plate, you have a nice little hostess gift. As far as packing cookies, little boxes and bags are available. Again, the peanut brittle that we made earlier. And actually, this is already set to the point that I think we can break it up, some of it. It's starting to set. We can at least stretch it now. And stretching it is good because having the thinner parts is always a good thing. But the edges will break off. And you can see we can put some of that in a bag and put it in a box. And have a few pieces of it. Very simple to make. And these little boxes are available. For cookies, you can use a box. Or a tin. I often use a Christmas tin to pack my cookies. That makes if you're giving a larger amount. And if you're mailing them through the mail, what I like to do is crumple up wax paper in the bottom, put in the cookies, and then crumple more wax paper on top so that when you shake it, they don't move. And I found this to be very successful by putting it in the tin, and I taped the tin shut in case it would come open in the mail, which they don't always take the greatest care. And then I would put this in a box and packing material around the box, and then mail it off to friends and relatives that are distant. And I've had very good luck with cookies reaching their destination in extremely good shape by doing that. Another gift would be little small quick breads, and those can be packaged up just with a ribbon bow. And again, these can be made in advance and either refrigerated or frozen. And again, you have a nice little hostess gift or a treat for drop-in guests. This particular bread is a cranberry walnut streusel bread, cranberry orange. An even easier way to package it would be to skip the wrap and put it into one of the cellophane bags and fasten it with a little seasonal clip clothespin. So there's some various ways to have some nice Christmas gifts from your kitchen to share with people over the holidays. I'm Liz Davey, and you've been watching A Walk in the Garden on NCTV, Norfolk Community Cable Television. This is our last show for 2017, and Buddy and Jim and I all wish you a very happy holiday season, and we'll see you next year.